Hello people! I'm Ginny Metheral and I am a fourth generation witch. I have noticed that there are a lot of videos recently in the witchcraft community talking about shadow work. Now, I have a very close family member who happens to be extremely well qualified, if not the highest qualified psychotherapist that I've ever met. And I have been speaking to her about this word, this terminology, shadow work. And I thought I'd like to just talk very briefly about what I think, because I'm not entirely sure it's a good idea for witches to claim they can cure mental illness, which is essentially what shadow work is. So first of all, what is shadow work? Well, it comes from Jung, the therapist of the 20th century, and he described it as your shadow self. So your shadow self is something that you don't know about. There are two types of shadows. There are golden shadows, which are the good ones, and there are the darker shadows. For example, in a golden shadow, I had a friend who went around going, "Oh God, I'm so stupid, I'm really stupid." And they honestly believed that they were an idiot and not very clever and worked really hard trying to improve their intelligence. And I spent my whole time saying to them, you are extremely clever. Stop believing that you're not. You're much more intelligent than the average person, which they are. That is a golden shadow. It's something that you don't believe or don't acknowledge or don't know that you have, which is a pretty good point. And likewise, the darker shadow. You might think that, for example, that you are the most kind and generous person that you've ever come across, yet you have a shadow which is pure selfishness, and you refuse to know it or acknowledge it. It's not even a refusal to acknowledge, it's just that you don't know that you've got this selfish side. And if you don't know that you've got a side of you, how can you possibly work at getting it better? This is why the shadow self is not something I believe that the witchcraft community should necessarily get involved with, because it is essentially a mental illness. And all mental illnesses tend to need professional management and help. So what are witches talking about when they say you must work on your shadow self, you must do some shadow work? Well, they're talking about looking at your deepest, darkest thoughts and, acknowledging them. That is not shadow work. That is something slightly different, which maybe is a witchcraft community thing, that we should look at our deeper, darker selves and work on improving it. As a witch, I work with the mental, the spiritual, the psychic and the bodily health. Pretty much. I'm sure there's one more, isn't there? Auric, maybe? Maybe it's your auric health. And I work with all of these aspects in a whole, because I personally believe, and consistently no one will ever tell me otherwise, that they are all integrated. And so you need to look at everything as a whole. People, I'm not the greatest healer, because I'm not particularly good at healing the physical self. And so I tend to recommend that you go to a doctor for that, because they're very good at it. They understand it. However, what I am good at is that I can do a tiny bit of healing on the physical self. I'm not brilliant at it. I know other people are. But what I can heal is your psychic, auric and spiritual health. So I can heal those for you. And it is fascinating to see clients who come to me, and they come and they're in a complete tears and a further, and you can see that they feel their life is falling apart. And after 6 weeks in my care or thereabouts, suddenly I stop hearing from them. And I always get a bit, my client's gone. I haven't heard from them anymore. Oh well. And that's because they're off living their lives and they just don't need me anymore. And that is my goal. So how can I help you to do the sessions that I do with my clients? Well, I'm going to show you what I do with each of them to start with, and I would recommend that you do this before you start any witchcraft, really, because it is really important. And that is a spiritual cleansing ceremony. The first thing that you will need to do is to cast a circle, and you can cast it wherever you like. Outside is always good, especially if you can take your shoes and socks off and stand on the earth, because you will feel the earth's power coming through that circle. However, inside is fine. And if you don't know how to cast a circle, do watch my casting a circle video. Now, this circle that we're going to cast today is a specialist circle, because you can cast a circle for individual uses. So the use for today's circle is going to be cast with these words. I cast this circle to bring me the greatest and highest good for my concerns. Or words to that effect, depending on how you like to phrase your circle. But what you're doing is you're casting your circle to bring the greatest and highest good to you. Now, I've already cast my circle and I'm now sitting in it, and that is what I want you to do. You can sit or stand in your circle. The next part is also very easy. I want you to do some cleansing. Now, you can do some cleansing with whatever you like. I have here, say, a burning stick. Now, before any of you jump down my throats, there is in no way has this sage ever seen an American prairie, ever in its life. In fact, I think it was grown in a polytunnel in Devon, just down the road from me. It's no more seen a prairie than I have, quite frankly. However, you could use a Palo Santo burning stick, which also has great cleansing properties. Or, if you don't have either of those, you can use a joss stick. I do want you to use something with smoke involved, because although I do know others who use bells or clappers to get rid of the energy, smoke is the most pervasive through your aura, and so really gets into all the little nooks and crannies that you need. So make sure that you get a really nice, good head of smoke going on your smudge stick. And you're going to start at the top, because 90 to 99% of the people in this world will carry their negativity and the other people's, bad juju energy on their shoulders. That's why people get hunched up on their shoulders, because that's where they're carrying it. You need to get rid of it. And it's very easy with a smudge stick. So as you take it over your shoulders, you will feel it tingling on the back. You should feel your skin tingling. If you're accessing your inner eye properly, you'll feel that you need to do a bit more here. And I've got a lot going on here, and I can feel it really having a go. And actually, that's quite interesting. I'm not feeling that the Palo Santo is actually right to get rid of the negativity on my shoulders at the moment. I think I'm going to need to go with a sage burning stick. There we go. I think that's quite a good smoke. So I'm going to start again with that, because, as I said, I didn't feel the Palo Santo was really hitting the mark. Yeah, so I've got a lot of... Ooh, there we go. That's better. Now, it's always a really good idea to do a full body cleanse. So we're going to take it down the arms and the hands and the stomach and the back and the other arm. Oh, there's a bit here that I've missed. I can feel. Don't forget to do your hands, your legs, and the bottom of your feet, because that is where you can take energy in through the soles of your feet, because they're in contact with the ground. And so, although they're generally quite thick-skinned and thick-soled to prevent negativity, it's often good just to clean that area like you'd clean any doorway. Once you feel that you have cleansed all the negativity out, we're going to do a visualization technique, and this is the final part. I want you to breathe in, and as imagine you're breathing in, you're gathering all the stresses and strains, and just put a sort of generalised label on them. Don't think, oh, well, I'm stressed because I missed the 5:08 bus this morning, whatever it is. Just get all the stresses and strains, all my stresses, all my negativity, and breathe it in. And then I want you to blow it outside that circle. And imagine that as you blow out, all the stresses, strains, negativity and problems are just leaving the circle. You're going to feel so much better, I promise. It's very important to do these ceremonies before you start any witchcraft, because the negativity that you are carrying can interrupt and change spells that you make. So to make sure that you've got nothing that can work against any magic you are creating, do a cleansing ceremony. Likewise, it's a great thing to do after a therapy appointment as well as before a therapy appointment, because you're getting rid of the stuff that you don't need to work on with a therapist. You're just getting rid of the stuff that you can just get rid of magically quite by now. I hope you understood that. It's a bit of a complicated one, isn't it? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that shadow work is not, necessary. I just don't think that you can do it without a trained psychotherapist. Really? Because you don't know what your shadow is? Because you've no idea? Because it's a mental illness and, Anyway, that's my thoughts about it. What are yours? Do leave me a comment below. I'd love to hear. My cover meeting for April is coming up soon. Do go to patreon.com/Ginny Metheral for more details. I don't know what we're doing this month. I haven't thought about it yet, but it'll be great. It always is. Otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I will see you in a few days.